Hi all, welcome to my 10th part in the evolution of chess style. So basically, so far, we started from Philidor, who had a great influence on style through history because he was the first to really recognise the power of the pawns in strategy and their everlasting influence during the game. Although at the time he wasn't that appreciated. It was in a way he was ahead of his time. And then later, I realised about two videos later that we actually skipped Greco and the Italians, and basically, there was a sort of shift in power or a battle for power between, Italy and Spain and France and England, for what would be, the centre of chess. So, there was a later gravitation to France and England, and out of that, there was this great player, Philidor, and what was his successor? Though, who was his successor? De la Bourdonnais, Louis Charles de la Bourdonnais was his successor for about 20 years, I think. And he had a competitor in the form of Alexander MacDonald. And they played an absolutely classic match, a huge match, sort of the first unofficial World Championship match. And there were some brilliant games out of those matches. Actually, it was like several sub-matches. And there was actually a clash of styles here with de la Bourdonnais, playing d4 and kind of quite positional. And, MacDonald playing e4, back in, sort of open game, more emphasis on e4 openings, more open positions. But what I'd like to pick up on, before going on any further, I've tried to churn and synthesize, what does impact chess style throughout the years, the centuries. I've picked 11 things so far. I've formally written them down. I'd say first the times, just simply the culture of the times, and this is something emphasized by my favorite book of all time, The World of Chess. We see here it says in one part. Well, regarding later players, Anderson, in fact, if his play lacked something of Morphy's full-blown logic, it's because Anderson was the child of his age, and the emphasis of the age was on combination. Even Steinitz played for unjustified inverted commas combinations in the early playing career, which were at sharp variance with his later theories. So even Steinitz, who was the one to formalise chess theory later, even he was influenced by the times, the culture of the times. And often the culture of the times, were about creating beauty. So it goes on to say that the truth is that there are styles in chess, just as there are styles in writing. And no one is immune to their influence. So, basically it's saying also Morphy himself often sacrificed his knowledge of basic principles to the quest of a pretty combination. So it's in particular a major exception, to the natural kind of evolution of chess. If it was, to be formalised, the theory formalised, etc. A major exception is beauty. That goes at the heart of what chess is. Is it a science or is it art? Those two major branches, they're in conflict, and that affects the evolution of style. That players were influenced by their times, by the need to create beautiful games. And I think from my experience on YouTube, creating beautiful games, I'm aware that if I play like a beautiful blitz game, you guys are going to keep it in your favourites. Maybe it's going to be great for marketing my channel. So I'm aware that beauty is also not just for you. It makes it for other people to share, and it creates interest in the game. It creates marketing for the game. The beauty of the game. So if we just follow this laborious scientific evolution, that's not really what happened in the evolution of style. There's this tension between science and art aspects of the game. So there's the times, but I've listed other ones, and I don't want to bore you too much. I'm just going to quickly flick through my notes here. I would say recorded games play an influence. That's why I wanted to go over the earliest recorded games of Greco in the previous few videos. The previous styles and generations obviously have an influence. Everyone stands on the head and shoulders of previous generations. And I think sometimes there's a big time delay, like with Philidor, it was picked up later by Steinitz. There's a bit of a delay, for how his theories were later evolved and developed. I would say there's this aspect of design goals, and that's a function of society. If chess has a purpose within society to provide entertainment, for example, for the aristocrats, the rich people, or other design goals of society, so chess is actually shaped, and major chess innovations like the aesthetics of the pieces by Staunton, introduction of chess clocks, also affect the rhythm of chess, how it's actually played. Whilst not changing the actual rules of chess, it's how the games actually look, and how long they take. So the design goals of society, imposes an influence on, naturally the style of the game, I think. Then we hear this term, the schools of chess, which is actually just groups of people sharing, certain common beliefs about how the game should be played. So you've got the positional players, maybe the more dynamic players, which like to individualize strategy depending on the openings and the type positions. Then I would say, the world champions carry a huge influence just because they've got that credibility. Their games are probably going to be more published, one would hope, and so they're going to be more emphasised. Their examples, and all about them. Books, very influential books like My System or Think Like a Grandmaster or Silman in modern times. The Theory of Imbalances. That's been a big influence. Or this way of skyrocketing your rating through learning tactics. Was it Damasio or something? I'm sorry if I got his name wrong, but big books have a huge influence. Geography used to have a huge influence because of the lack of communication, technology. Nowadays, I would say computers have a big influence, making the game a lot more technical, a lot more opening theory, a lot more spread of information immediately, of innovations, etc. The internet, that's helps in the spread of information, and lifestyles. So anyway, I'll touch on these later, but let's now go back after Philidor and see Labordonnais versus MacDonald, so one of their games. So D4 was played by Labordonnais, and we see now the Queen's Gambit accepted, a kind of basic response to the Queen's Gambit. But there's something beautiful in this game. So it was actually highlighted, this game, by the world of chess. As we'll see, I'm not going to spoil it for you now. So F5 and now Knight C3. So MacDonald's, trying to sort of undermine White's centre. He has got a nice bishop on C5. But according to Rivka, White's fine here. White's better here so far. So bishop G5, and now the move bishop takes F2 was played. So the idea is king takes F2, queen C5, king F1. The bishop goes back to B6, and now White played queen E2, and now we see F4. And White has a particular idea by playing rook D1, which now becomes evident. He wants to sacrifice the D pawn to exploit this pin of the knight. So black actually takes it. And after knight d5, can you guess what black plays here if I give you 5 seconds? Okay, black, MacDonald actually sacked his queen. So a very interesting queen sack. And, he has persistent, pressure now. So here he plays knight e3, check, king e1, and now he takes on e7. So he's defending d6. He's got that lovely dark square bishop. After queen d3, rook d8 to protect that d pawn. Rook d2, now knight c6. So the other knight is joining in now. So after b3, bishop a5 is played. A good move apparently is knight takes g2. But, maybe black, he wanted to keep that pretty knight there. So what he did play was actually rook ac8. White played rook g1. Now we see b5. So, black's really blasting, activity for his pieces. Bishop takes b5. Now bishop takes f3. And now knight d4. Look at the wonderful knights. They have great, aesthetic value. Now black played knight takes f3. Knight takes d2. Black's got huge compensation for the earlier queen sack. Rook b7. Now knight takes c4. So White's running out of resources as well here. He's only got his rook and queen now. Bishop b6. It's really coming to an end now. So knight c4 check. Rook g8. Lovely coordination of the rooks here. Lovely, absolutely lovely. Rook takes b6, a bit desperate, but I don't think there's anything else, really. I don't think so, nope. king h4, king f6, coming to the end of the game now, rook g6, and now the final move, knight e3, and white had enough. Le Bourdelais won all these match games overall, actually, but according to the world of chess, McDonald made a dent, and so that was good for the reputation of British chess. That he did win a few games at least, and this was one of the prettier ones. So I hope there's lots of stuff in this video. Please give it a think. Tell me if I've missed out any major influences on chess style, or if you don't think if you don't agree with some of the influences I listed. We'll go on in the next video. Thanks very much.